Welcome to this very practical sprint, how to refine your backlog. Our goal in this sprint is for you to build your experience refining your backlog. You'll chunk it up into small pieces, group those into groupings called epics, and then prioritize. So by the end of the sprint, you'll be able to refine your backlog by prioritizing and splitting your work into manageable pieces. Because even a Chihuahua can eat an entire elephant, just one small can of dog food at a time. So to continue the story, it felt good to get my initial backlog made. But as I looked at it, I realized some of the items were really big, like learn key Scrum Master metrics. Those needed to be broken down. I also realized that several of the items could be better organized by parent categories or buckets. In Scrum, we call these buckets epics. An epic is the parent or bigger chunk of work that holds the child work underneath it. So first, let's talk about splitting up your work. You ideally want to split each backlog item small enough so you can finish it in 2 to 4 days. Really. So here's a splitting example. Remember our draft backlog we created in the last sprint? It's all about getting your Scrum Master job. Here you can see me entering that list into Jira, which is a must-know tool for you as a Scrum Master. Why? Because 8 out of 10 companies use it for their Scrum teams. If you don't have Jira on your resume, you likely won't even get the interview. But don't worry, in a few sprints, you'll get some speed dating lessons on Jira. Okay, now that we have our initial backlog in a simple list, let's start refining it. Here's a pretty big job we can split. Update my resume with my new Scrum Skills and experience. Let's have fun with it first and rename it to Scrumify my resume. Now let's split that into add my new Scrum Master skills to my resume and add my Scrum Master experience to my resume, even if I got it through my current non-Scrum job or through volunteering. Then list my scrumified personal brand at the top of my resume to brand me. Add my Scrum Master certifications to my resume, including this apprenticeship program. Add my Scrum volunteer experience to my resume, like helping at a conference, contributing to a Scrum LinkedIn group, blogging, etc. All right, here's another splitting example. Scrumify my personal brand and elevator speech. This is pretty big. So you could chunk it down into list my new Scrum Master skills, bake my new Scrum Master skills into my personal brand, bake my new Scrum Master skills into my elevator speech. But you might be thinking, what if your work items in your backlog are just too big? Don't worry, there's a solution to that. So epics are the parents of stories, or the smaller pieces of work. And guess what? You already know how to use them. I'll prove it to you. Think about those buckets again. That's all epics are. They act like organizing buckets for the various smaller work items in your backlog. So how do you create them? Easy. You just look at your backlog list and see what the basic categories are. Then you create one epic for each category. Then you organize your backlog items underneath their respective parent epics, just like kids generally live in the same house as their parents, unless they're grown up. So here are the key epics that I extrapolated from my initial Get the Scrum Master Job backlog list. 1. Skills. Fill in skill gaps. 2. Tools. Get confident on the pieces of Jira I'll use most as a Scrum Master. 3. Metrics. Get on top of the most essential Scrum Master metrics. 4. Get experience. Actual working experience using Scrum Master skills. 5. Get the job. Scrumify your resume, personal brand, networking approach, LinkedIn interviewing skills, and negotiating skills. Then you just drag the stories into the epics, like I'm doing here in Jira. That gives you an easy, color-coded way to organize your backlog and get closer to your dream job. And you know what everybody says about goals. Goals are good. So you can use the roadmap feature in Jira if you want to set your goals. Just drag your epics to the dates you want to aim for. And since nobody's perfect, you can adjust your dates by easily dragging those epics again. And of course, every backlog needs to be prioritized. One of my favorite approaches is Moscow. M is for must-have. S is for should have, C is for could have, W means won't have. So your must-have is your non-negotiable needs, mandatory. For example, to scrumify your resume. You already have great skills. You just need to translate those into Scrum language. If you don't, then the hiring manager, like me, won't be able to see all the ways that you could be a good Scrum Master. Should have is important but not vital. An example would be, learn how to leverage LinkedIn in the job search. However, having said that, I would really recommend you get very comfortable with LinkedIn. Make it your new best friend. It's a ready-made gold mine for finding your dream job. Okay, so could have means nice to have. An example would be listening to Scrum Master podcasts to hear real life how to get their stories from the trenches. But again, having said that, I highly recommend podcasts because they give you actual on-the-ground visibility into ways you can actually get to the Scrum Master job. And you can't get those ways in training. So now, won't have. That means low priority or out of reach at the moment. An example would be, get a full-time paid Scrum Master job before applying or before having real experience. Unless the magic Scrum Fairy shows up or a hiring manager already knows you to be a qualified Scrum Master, this would not be worth spending your time on. Congratulations, you made it to the end of this sprint. And now it's your turn. Number 1, go back to your initial backlog, then split your stories to chunk them down to manageable sizes. Number 2, look for patterns and natural categories in your refined backlog list. Use that to create epics. Number 3, then organize each story under its own epic. Like, put the children with the parents. An easy way to do this is to write the name of the epic on each story card. That way, you can still prioritize individual stories that go with different epics, whether you're doing it on physical stickies or an electronic board like Jira. Number 4, then prioritize your individual work items, your stories. So try Moscow or whatever prioritization technique you like, just do it. Don't worry about being perfect because nothing ever is. Just do the darn thing and pat yourself on the back. Okay, so our goal in this sprint was for you to build your experience refining your backlog. We chunked it up into small pieces, grouped those pieces into epics, and talked about prioritizing. By now, you should be able to refine your backlog by splitting and prioritizing your work into manageable pieces, ideally under epics. Because remember, even a Chihuahua can eat that entire elephant, just one small can of dog food at a time. In the next sprint, you'll continue your basics by reviewing and practicing how to find and manage your dependencies.